In this episode, we got our hands on an ancient text called the Necromonicon. I think we'll just recite a few passages for fun. Nothing bad can happen, right? Stay with us. Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast, your premier destination for the best in music and movie podcasting, right? Eric, I think we're better. You and I are premier, but I think it's a step above when we have guests.
Of course.
And like we're premier. You and I together, we're premier. Well, when we add guests in, I don't know what the next level is, but we attain whatever that next level is. It's like powering up. You know, it's like when Thor shot his hammer into Iron Man in the Avengers, and Iron Man got like powered up to 1,000. Yeah, that's what it's like when we have guests.
How can you improve? How can you improve on perfection, guys? Come on.
1,000%, right? You go to like right. The Iron Man thought he was powered up, but when he got that dose from Thor, it went like through the roof, right? He didn't know he could attain that level, and that's the level we attain with guests like Andrew Cremeans. Andy, can you believe that we're doing our second round of Halloween themed?
I know. Podcast? I am so excited that you're having me here, and I can't believe you guys have been going this strong this long. And I mean, I can believe it, but it's super cool that it's happening. And I see new members popping in on the Facebook page all the time. It's really cool to see it growing, man. Like you guys are doing a great job.
I'll be honest, I'm starting to run out of alternate email addresses to join. You know, like there's only so many different names I can come, and I can't manage them all. So we need real people. So Andrew Cremeans, as always a great time to have him on. He's a man of multi hats in the podcast land, our podcast land. He's our resident metal guy. He's our resident horror guy.
Yep.
You can find his work on Instagram at Andrew Cremeans Art. Check him out on Instagram. Andy, I understand you just finished a poster of some type.
I did. It's a big show that is happening next month that I can't say anything about, but it is, it's for a band that I, of course, like very much, and it's going to be a very specific show, and I couldn't be happier. Maybe next time I'm on, if you have me on again, we can talk about it. But I'm super excited. But speaking of poster, I'm going to throw a monkey wrench into this episode already. Okay. I'm sorry to put you on the spot here, but I have the perfect transition to the subject matter. Okay, so
all right,
posters, right? Everybody has the experience growing up of going to a mom and pop VHS store. I mean, people of our, age, are long in the tooth as we are.
Yep.
Going into a mom and pop VHS store and going in and seeing specific posters, and you saw the same posters over and over again, right? What were the ones that you see? You remember, like you're walking through there. What are the ones that you saw all the time?
Oh goodness, this would have to be one of them.
Absolutely,
the first movie. The one with the girl reaching up out of the pool or whatever.
I think Toxic Avenger was always in VHS rental stores as well, because it was just such a weird, campy poster. Like when I think of walking into the VHS stores, like Toxic Avenger would always kind of be like in the back, and new posters would be over it or around it, but you'd still see Toxie in there.
Probably a lot of Cronenberg type stuff too, like Videodrome and Yeah.
What about you?
RoboCop?
It's definitely something to throw in the comments if you guys are listening. What were the ones that you saw if you're our age? But like I remember Return to Horror High. It was like a skeleton cheerleader on a white background. There was Kiss of the Spider Woman. I've never seen the movie. I don't know what it's about.
Yeah.
But I remember the poster. The Evil Dead 2, obviously the skull with the eyeballs. Man, there were so many, but those are the ones that really stick out to me. Nightmare on Elm Street 2, for some reason, was always everywhere.
It was stuff. Oddly enough, I kind of got a feeling where you were going with that, and I have in my notes. For me, that the Evil Dead 2 poster, which has nothing to do with the movie, it's a full. The poster, it's a full face of, full skull image of a real skull with like real human eyes.
Yeah.
And I would always see that on the VHS shelf, and it always it was one of those iconic images that I would always see it. And that's what attracted me to eventually to renting it was seeing that image, which again, really has totally zero really zero to do with the film. Is
Yeah.
nothing whatsoever to do with it. But before we get there, let's go through the stats like we always do. We have to drop some factual knowledge before we get to the crazy opinions, the fan theories, the impressions, the reminiscing, all that good stuff. Let's get the stats out of the way, and then we'll circle back on that because an interesting story about the behind the scenes from this film too. So this was released in March of 1987. Wow.
Yeah, 87.
Wow. It's an old one. Directed by Sam Raimi, written by Sam Raimi and Scott Spiegel. A paltry $3.5 million budget and a $5.9 million box office return, which does not tell the story of this film because the film was not widely released. Because of the nature of the making of the film, it didn't get like a wide release. It got put into theaters. Kind of in a backdoor way. Let's talk about that. Right. Let's get right into that right straight off since we're there. Mm-hmm. Obviously there was the first film was Evil Dead, directed by Sam Raimi, and his idea for a second film was originally to be titled Evil Dead and the Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
And he wanted the character to go back to medieval times and battle the Deadites, and really couldn't secure the financing for it. Couldn't just nobody was interested in it. Stephen King had a deal with Dino De Laurentiis because he was directing Maximum Overdrive. He was dipping his toe into the directorial waters. And he was a fan of Raimi, and he told Dino De Laurentiis, hey, you know what, you should check this guy out, because financing had fallen through with the original company because of the nature of the sequel. Dino De Laurentiis says, hey, listen, we'll finance this thing, but you make it more like the first one. Like, what is this other story? Like, make it more like the first one and we'll finance it. And they're like, okay. So they go back in and they rewrite it and they reconfigure the whole thing. Coming in at 82 minutes. Okay. It would not qualify for an R rating. And if they cut it down, it would be probably an hour film. Because Dino De Laurentiis' studio was a major studio, they could not distribute it as an X film or as an unrated film. So what they did is they created a shell company. They created a fake company to distribute this film. So since it was not associated with the MPAA or whatever it was, they could distribute it unrated and not have it affect their studio. And they created this Rosebud studio. And if I don't know if you saw, remember in the beginning of the film, Sam Raimi filmed that little Rosebud, the rose opening with the blue sky behind it. He filmed that for the fake company. So they could have Rosebud, whoever Rosebud distribute this film as an unrated film, and kind of circumvent any of the issues that a major studio might have had. So I think that's a funny. You're already kind of seeing what's going on behind the scenes with this film. So, Andy, how did you come to this film? Definitely not. Was it 87? Nah.
Around that, yeah, around 87, 88. Yeah, my dad. Well, I would go to his house on the weekends, and we would stop at the video store on the way to his house every Friday. So I would always be picking up all these weird, like DEFCON 4 or like, these weird like. Just, Damnation Alley, or just grabbing whatever looked cool off the shelf or whatever. But just really quick, going back, Night of the Living Dead had very similar problems. And they had all kinds of issues. Like George Romero didn't have the rights to it. It became almost like a public domain film. They didn't make a cent off that movie. And they had to do something very similar. Like Tom Savini directed a remake of it just so they can get some money out of it. Basically, the whole team was involved. Yeah. But it was around 87, 88. And I actually don't know if I saw the first one or the second one first, but I remember, like you were talking about the poster. Even today, you look at that poster, it looks like a perfect Photoshop job. And however they did, I don't know how they did it back in 87. Something that looked like that seamless. It's really cool. Yeah. But, before we get into this podcast, let me just qualify my saying that, like, I loved the movie. I love Sam Raimi. I loved everything about it, but I'm going to make fun of it this entire episode.
How could you not?
Because,
I think you're supposed to.
Yeah.
I think it's a requirement of
it's funny because, like, this is the remake. This is their second chance. and this is what they came
Yeah.
up with.
Yeah.
There's there's zero character development in this movie whatsoever. Like the first 5 minutes, I don't know if you're going to get to this that quick, but like you see them in the car, they cross a bridge, and then he's playing the piano. The next shot, and then there's there's no getting out of the car and like looking at the cabin, like, oh wow, what a dump, or no character development, nothing. It's
No
like
exposition,
you're right
no
into
nothing.
yeah, and then there's some random ass book. Is this like a timeshare? Was somebody there before?
Yeah.
Like, what are they renting it? Do people just squat here? And then
it looks like she's like, let's leave before they come. So they didn't even like belong. Like, it's not like they rented it. They just kind of heard about this
just
in the woods that you go stay at. Like, because she's like, oh, I don't feel comfortable. What if they come in? He's like, hey, baby,
yeah.
Well, for a really long time, it was considered. A lot of people thought it was a remake. But now, apparently, that is a subject for debate because people are saying that the first 5 minutes of this film is a recap of the first movie.
I guess.
And when the first movie ends and Ash steps out of the cabin, the minute that he gets taken by the Deadites and he's like being like pulled through the woods, that's when this particular story starts. So it's actually a sequel, but they didn't bring in the other characters for something. They just redid. They just kind of reshot everything from the first movie. That what happened from the first movie in that first 5 minutes. I don't know. I mean, I kind of. It can go either way, I suppose. I'd never really thought of it that way. But,
I think it's a broad rewrite. I mean, they had to literally rewrite this film.
Yeah.
From the original idea of what they had and say, oh, well, we got the financing, but we need to kind of come up with something different. So, I think it's easy to say. This is a sequel where you don't need to see the first one.
Yeah,
I agree.
There's really nothing. Agree. There's really nothing in, and I don't mean that in a bad way. You don't need it. Like, watch Evil Dead 2 and you're fine.
The first one's feels very much like a student film anyway.
Yeah.
But like I was saying, like within the first like 3 or 4 minutes, all this stuff happens, and then the girlfriend is immediately kidnapped, and then Ash sees her come around the corner as like a zombie for like 0.5 seconds and then chops her head off. It's like there's no like, what's wrong? Are you not feeling all right? No, it's just straight.
We don't know this person whatsoever.
Yeah, just chop her head off, and then he becomes a demon. And this is all within the first like 5 minutes, 5 minutes 45 seconds.
Yep. Well, as we know, Bruce Campbell as Ash Williams is a character of questionable morals anyway, as evidenced in the sequel in Army of Darkness. So, this movie is it's only 82 minutes and it actually feels longer. It moves at such a rapid fire pace. They cram and jam so much into this that you don't need to know where Bruce Campbell's character is from. You don't care. It's not important to the story what he is, what he was, or what he wasn't. It's not important what the girlfriend, like it's almost like an extended sketch. Like, yeah, you're right, Andy. It's like there's no meat on the bones, but that is not the point of it, right? I think the point is the visual. I think the point is the visuals,
the style,
exactly the style. This is sizzle over steak.
Yeah.
And
like a Three Stooges episode.
Taken for a ride when I rented this, I thought this was something else. Like, I thought I was getting like a Faces of Death or a straight up horror film. And then you start to watch it and you're not sure if you're supposed to be laughing.
Yeah.
Which sometimes happens with bad like there's a distinction, Eric, right? We've laughed at bad films because they're bad.
Because they're so low budget.
They're bad, or the acting is just so horrible or so over the top that it's bad because it's bad. Mm-hmm. This is funny not because it's bad, because it's taking the genre and twisting it, but you're not, if you've never seen it before, you're not aware that this is happening. You think this is a bad film because it's happening. Like, what are they doing?
Right.
It's but that's bad not what it is. It's genre twisting, right?
It's most certainly by design. I mean, it's the creative choices that he's making here. Yeah. I mean, I think the first film was meant to be a straight up horror film, the gore and really getting your, like, and as Andy said, it was like more like a student film. Sure. But yeah, I mean, this time out, it's like, we're going to why not throw in the humor? I mean, I think they probably saw some of those things because the first one was so probably a little bit, more horrible than
Yeah.
than what they were doing in this. And so it's like, okay, we'll take that element and we'll put it, and we're going to fool people and say that this is going to resemble a really bad movie, but it's actually, I mean, you're talking about a 95% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. The critics loved it when it came out because of the style, because it was so different.
Yeah,
I would have
and
loved,
a lot of that is due to Scott Spiegel. He brought the humor into that. Like, for instance, when he cuts his hand off and he puts the bucket on it, and the stack of books, the top book is a Farewell to Arms. It's like, if you don't catch it, like that's done on purpose. That wasn't a bad film accident. That was done on purpose. So when you start to look at these things, that certain things are done with intention, then you start to understand. And at the time I didn't get it. I think up until the point when he said groovy, that's when I kind of got it. Like up until that, even with the explosive amounts of blood and the laughing lamp,
right?
Because it's like a bad trip, Andy. Right? It's kind of like you don't know really if this is supposed to be funny or not, or if this guy is just in a manic psychosis.
I remember liking it when I was a kid, but I don't remember it being so silly. But I do remember Army of Darkness just being straight up silly. So by proxy, but I rewatched it just to prep for the episode or whatever, and I just remember thinking a couple of times when I was watching it, I was like, man, I would have loved to have been in a theater that somebody just walking, like in 87, walking to a theater like you're taking your girlfriend to a horror movie. I can imagine everybody in the theaters looking at each other like, what the hell's happening?
What are we watching right now? Yeah,
but like at the same time, the tone. Who is this movie for? Like when you're sitting down to watch the movie, like what I focus groups, like who is? It seems like they're making this movie. All the people that are making this movie are making a movie that makes themselves laugh. Yeah, and that's it. Like they're just having a great time, and then like throw it out there to see what happens. And
I think maybe the casual horror fan might not get it. I think really geeky horror fans probably got like really love this because it was so refreshing from what they're used to. I think if you showed it to a casual horror fan, they're like, well, this isn't really scary, or it is, but what is it? What else is it supposed to be? But I think the horror fanatics probably ate this up and probably got it and probably understood, like it's not, like I said, the distinction between this was a cheaply made film, but it is not a cheap film.
Yeah, there's actual. It's a cartoon. You could almost watch the movie with the sound down, and you'll miss all the manic laughing and stuff like that. But it's very visual, and you're getting what's going on.
Yeah.
But like there's a couple of creepy moments, but there was only one part of the movie, like one shot that kind of creeped me out a little bit. That was actually really well executed. Was when he's looking in the mirror and he comes through the mirror and grabs him. I was not expecting that at all. And I've seen the movie a couple of times. I was like, whoa, that was really well done. That's a really cool shot.
He's like, I'm fine. And then the badass is like, I don't think so. We just cut up our girlfriend with a chainsaw. Does that sound fine?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, you're right. When I was watching that scene, I was trying to look for the trick. But there was no way to do it except for to have a double on one side exactly mime it.
Yeah, it was really well done.
It's the only way it works.
It's a masterclass of just that kind of filmmaking. It's just it's low budget, but what can we do to do this? The makeup in this thing is great. The practical effects, they're clever. Yeah, there's jump scares everywhere. It's almost like you're walking into a haunted house, right? You're like an attraction. It's like literally it feels that way because in every corner there's something popping out. There's like trap doors. There's a zombie. There's all kind. Yeah, because you just don't expect any of it, and it just it really has that effect. I forgot half the shit that's in this movie when I watched it last night. I was still jumping out of my skin just because of the surprise factor of it.
It alternates. There'll be something creepy, and then, like I said, like the laughing, the laughing books and everything, and then something creepy will happen. I'll be the first one to make fun of the film. This cabin is probably like 10 by 20, but it has more corridors in the basement. It has a whole subsystem, a whole sub pipe system.
It's the TARDIS,
but it's brilliant. Like when the what they call it, the Force or whatever they call it,
takes you on this.
That's it. Like Raimi invented that, like the busting down, and I think they put the camera on like a plank and would just have guys carrying it and like pushing it through all these things.
It might as well
and
be a
chasing him around the
mansion.
house.
It might as well be a Gothic castle or something, because
Yeah.
it's taking you to all these rooms and
then they like show you the outside of it. It's like a door and 2 windows in each side.
It's a horror horror TARDIS. It's bigger on the inside.
yeah.
It's just so yeah. They and obviously a lot of the scenes too. I think when you could tell when they're ribbing you is like anytime, like the scene with Ash when he shot the hand through the wall and all that blood came out. And then in the next scene, he's got no blood on him. He's dry. He's just got some blood on his face. Like they're playing with those genres, and it happened with the girl too, where all the black stuff was flying around. And then in the next scene, she's like clean.
Yeah.
It's kind of,
would you go as far as to say that it's very, I guess the term is meta, because it's so self-aware. It's so aware of its, of those kinds of things, like the flubs, and saying that it's on purpose that they're doing this kind of stuff.
I think it's done to mess with you too, right?
Yeah,
like what is like it was that whole thing real with the blood coming out of the wall? Because then all of a sudden Ash in the next scene is kind of clean. So is it playing with our minds, or is it playing with continuity on purpose? Like anytime we do it, they're going to be clean. They're going to be like the next scene, they're totally clean, except for they got some of the stuff on their face. It's just,
could be, so go see this. You imagine how many people knew about this movie enough to see it while they were high, like high off their ass. I can just imagine what kind of trip that must have been.
Not enough people. This found its second life afterwards. Like Andy had said, I had picked it up on VHS and was just like, I think I told Eric about it, and I think
that's right, you did, because I remember a cousin of mine saw the first movie, and she was like, oh, I saw this movie called The Evil Dead, and she was telling me all about it, how gory it was, and this and that, and then the second one came out, and I wasn't sure if I had seen it in the theater or not, because I do remember I had to have seen the film because I was looking forward to Army of Darkness, because when we found out that they were making a third one with a higher budget, and it was this medieval thing, and it was going to take us on a whole nother journey. Yeah, I was stoked. I remember, we us talking about that. I think we probably saw it together. Like I think we rented it.
Yeah, I definitely rented it. Yeah, and
we might have seen it, like maybe not the first time, but maybe I think we rented it. I guess just for the for shits and giggles, and we watched it together. I think with Johnny.
Yeah, I think me and Johnny. Yeah. I think Johnny and I watched it first, and then they said, "Eric, you got to see this. Like, this is unexplainable. Like, this is unexplainable. It's like I was expecting like Hellraiser or something like that. Like that type of scare thing, like creeped out and what you want the movie to end, but you don't want it to end.
Yeah.
Instead, I got like Three Stooges.
Yeah.
Like Bruce Campbell, like put himself through the rail. Like you got to. He's at this point.
The physicality of his acting.
That's debatable whether he's a good actor at this. It's definitely at this point in his career. He was, unless he's a really great overacting. But the physicality that he was put through, just is bar none. Just that whole scene in the kitchen when he's hitting himself with the plates and punching himself, and he does a whole like somersault, flips over, and
there are actual Three Stooges sound effects in there. He's like swinging the head around, and it's got that like crunch sound when he bites something. Like it just sounds like it's Curly is biting his fingers. The horror movie.
That's the scene that made me cringe. Is when the girlfriend bit the hand, and the head won't let go, and he's trying to it's like from a horror standpoint, that really bothered me. I'm like, her teeth are like in his hand, and she's not letting go, and he's like hitting it against it became funny, but it was also for me. I'm like, just like get your teeth out of his hand.
Yeah,
like,
right. It's meant to make you cringe. It does it all. It really does. It really does. So
the horror movie convention that I do artwork for, it's called Spooky Empire, and the owner of that used to work on Burn Notice with Bruce Campbell. So Bruce Campbell comes to Spooky a lot, and I've got to hang out with him quite a few times, and also with Sam Raimi, because he came a couple of years ago too. But there was one time at a VIP party that we had this huge Evil Dead cake, and Bruce cut the cake with a chainsaw. It was pretty cool.
Nice.
But they're both just genuinely like working class. Like Sam Raimi, you put on the. I mean, we can talk about him now. I guess he's put on this pedestal as being Sam Raimi, especially after Spider-Man, and then But when people are talking to him, the times that I've seen people talking to him, I've been in Q&As with him and stuff. People are asking him questions and complimenting him, and he's like looking at people like, why are you here? Why are you wanting to talk to me? I'm just some dude, like he's very humble, but not overly, not like fake humble. He's just like genuinely doesn't understand why people want to talk to him or have these questions. And that's what makes me like him so much. He's just so humble. Bruce is like humble, working class kind of dude, but he's also on. Every time I've ever seen him, he's always been in Bruce Campbell character, but super nice. And he had a book called If Chins Could Kill, which is really good. It's called If Chins Could Kill, Confessions of a B-movie Actor. And it's just him talking about his career and stuff. And I didn't know anything outside of his Ash stuff, maybe Briscoe County Jr. and stuff, but just hearing the stories, because he was like extras on everything. Like, so he's dealt with all kinds of famous people and he's just telling stories and stuff like that. But he's such a cool guy, man.
And Raimi and Bruce Campbell, early days aligned with the Coen brothers. They were kind of working together and
roommates.
I think some of the roommates and I think it was from the first film. I think one of the characters was inspired by Holly Hunter, because Holly Hunter was living with them at the time. Francis McDormand, the Coen brothers. This was like this community of people that were working and living together. You don't think of Sam Raimi and the Coen brothers in the same breath. It's like,
or Holly Hunter.
They kind of are. The Coen brothers have that subversive streak in them as well.
If you look at Raising Arizona, I mean, look at the way that movie shot. There's a lot of similarity there. I think in the tracking shots and the crazy running through the supermarket and all the that kind of reminds me of
very much so.
Takes you back camera. So there's that style. So
Raising Arizona,
and I think that with such a small budget for Evil Dead 2, necessity became the mother of invention, right? They needed to kind of figure, and Andy, you had mentioned it, like there was a lot of practical effects. There was stop motion, a la Ray Harryhausen kind of stuff that for some reason the Henrietta in the basement, when she changes, it always reminds me of a character from Beetlejuice. Like some of the stop motion they did in Beetlejuice, like with the neck and like when her neck elongates and she's got like this weird skull head, and it reminds me of like the same animation from Beetlejuice, like the same kind of stop
sort
motion.
Of the teeth and the overextended teeth and the eyeballs like sort of popping out and that kind of thing.
I swallow your soul.
There's so many iconic shots of that movie, because I collected Fangoria magazine and was all that stuff or whatever. You would see very specific shots of Evil Dead 2 everywhere. Even video stores would have like the lobby cards and stuff of just that monster, or there's that shot of looking over his shoulder. I think it's Henrietta before she turns. It's like looking over her shoulder or something like that. But that's Ted Raimi playing her brother, and he's cool too. He's a cool guy.
Yeah, he's done a lot of the side work as well. He usually appears in his brother's films in some form or another, and then has carved out a career as that extra work in the.
He's
always reminded me. And he's in the films himself, but he always reminded me of I wonder if the reason he casted Tobey Maguire because he resembles the Raimis a little bit, especially the brother. I think and they're both in the film. I know he's working at the paper, and but
he's Rocket Raccoon, right?
It's odd, it's just an odd.
He plays Rocket Raccoon, right? The stop motion. I'm sorry, not stop motion. The
no, James Gunn's brother.
That's Sean Gunn.
Sean Gunn does it.
Sorry,
Sean Gunn does it.
I'm mixing brothers. Sorry,
that's okay. Yeah, it's the same thing. But to that point, if you only have a certain budget and you want to attain certain kind of camera things, that's where putting a camera on a plank comes in. Let's figure out how to do this because we don't have the big bucks, and then it becomes like part of your style. You look at Spider-Man 2. Some of the Raimi, I think in the first Spider-Man it was kind of dialed back a little bit, but in Spider-Man 2 and in Multiverse of Madness, you see. Let's go with Multiverse of Madness when Giganto attacks in the beginning, right? He's like that big starfish type thing. What happens? His eyeball gets pulled out and it goes sailing through the air. Direct shot for shot.
Yeah.
from Evil Dead 2 when Henrietta loses her eyeball and it goes
A lot of callbacks.
and it's got the little vein on the end of it. It's the
Yeah.
same exact thing. And those callbacks are like it's great for people that remember him from this to see, oh wow, I remember that. Or the surgery scene in Spider-Man 2 when they're working on Ock's tentacles.
Oh yeah.
That is straight up horror. That's straight up
right.
Raimi horror.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
the fingernails scratching against, you know, when the arms are dragging the woman and they're scratching and it's like pulling stuff up.
Yeah.
You know, so you see this stuff and he could have very easily been toiling away at these types of films. But he was able to transcend it and become and after a couple of misses too, like Jack and the Beanstalk and some of these, he made some clunkers, but then was able to kind of pull it together again. And
Drag Me to Hell is a cult movie. I didn't care for it that much. It felt like somebody said, "I'm going to make a Sam Raimi movie and dial it to 200." Like he just, you know, and I think that's what a lot of people liked about it. But to me, it was just like, man, okay, I get it, you know. So, but Spider-Man 2, still to this day, one of the best superhero movies ever made.
Oh, absolutely. He was able to kind of deliver a superhero film, but then make it a little bit more of his own. You know, I think the first one was kind of, okay, let's keep it here. Let's make this film. Then he was able to do it. His first superhero movie was a clunker, and I was so looking forward to Darkman. I mean, it was okay. Like when I first saw, I was kind of disappointed when I saw it. I'm like, oh, all right, you know.
I remember seeing Darkman and thinking this should have been Batman. You know, because I'm not taking anything away from the first Batman, the '89 Batman, but it's just I just remember that movie being really long, and just by the end of it, I was just kind of like, oh.
You talking about Batman?
The Tim Burton Batman, but it's brilliant. It's great. But when I saw Darkman, the pacing of it and the sort of the horrific nature of it, and he's like an anti-hero, and he's, that to me was like, it's like he's like the Phantom of the Opera. This guy, he's like, I really like that horrific element to it, but yet he's trying to exact revenge, but I thought that was a really cool movie, and of course, really over the top. I
don't know if the studio knew what to do with it because it was. So disfigured, and how do you show him? And then you're supposed to like him, but he's subject to like manic psychotic episodes where he like, the flame goes off in his eye and he like breaks the guy's fingers back, like at the carnival, like when his face starts melting. It's like, what do you do with this kind of film? It's not if it hadn't been positioned as such a big budget tentpole film, maybe the expectations wouldn't have been as big on it,
Well, I think it was right. It was right in the shadow of Batman too, because it had just come out like the following summer or spring, right? Because Batman came out.
No, it was after Army of Darkness. He had done Army of Darkness, which was 91. So Batman was 89. So it was well after that. Maybe after Batman Returns, it might have been around that time. Yeah. Somewhere in that arena. Yeah, because at the end you've got Bruce Campbell, and I'm like, oh, there's Ash again at the very end as the fake Shemp, which they love using. His love of Three Stooges is palpable. In this one, it's more so in Army of Darkness. Andy, you talk about the sound effects in the graveyard scene of Army of Darkness. Yeah, when the skeletons are kind of like poking him, and you're hearing like the woo woo woo. You may as well just have him do the whole curly slap on the head thing.
Yeah.
That's when like Army of Darkness, you kind of you knew it was more slapsticky.
Yeah.
And I can't get away from Evil Dead 2. Not like go someone watching this. I don't know if would you want, let me ask you this, Andy. Would you want, if you were going to tell somebody, if you were going to have somebody watch this, would it be better to forewarn them and say, hey, this is kind of supposed to be funny? Or would it be better to not say anything and then have them say, wow, that was just really dumb, or I didn't get it. It was kind of trying to be funny, and then tell them, well, that's the way it was supposed to be. What do you think?
I would not say a word. I would just hand it to them. I don't like when people qualify things for me either, because it's either feels like it gets built up too much or it's too low. So I just hand it to me and let me check it out or whatever. But I kind of love how in Army of Darkness it wasn't just the slapstick, it was the smarm that they leaned into, like the hello, Mr. Fancy Pants, like that kind of humor that I really like, because he's like narrating the movie too.
Yeah.
He's like that. Then I fell through this or whatever, and it's just he's such a braggadocio kind of dude,
Full of bluster.
But he works at S-Mart, That's what makes it funnier to me, that he's just some guy at S-Mart, but he's whatever. But I have a philosophical question for you guys. So self-referential stuff like this, where the pastiche sort of thing, where movie like Cabin in the Woods comes out and deconstructs the horror movie genre, especially in a Cabin in the Woods. Can you recover from that? Once you've been parodied, can you do that? Because Cabin in the Woods came out, I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but I thought it was brilliant when I saw it. I had no idea what I was going into when I saw it. And then like 2 years later, the remake of Evil Dead came out, 2016 or 17. I don't remember what it was, probably later than that. But I just remember thinking, like, why would I want to see this? I've already seen it made fun of. It's almost like Scream. Like every time a new Scream came out, you can't do that anymore because everybody's like referencing horror movies in horror movies. Like, how do you recover from that?
Yeah, once it's had the piss taken out of it. What do you think, Eric? Do you think is it possible to redefine? You said, Andy, I guess you're asking, is it possible to redefine it again?
Yeah, or
it's very difficult. Very difficult, especially today. Everything is being,
everything's meta.
Everything's meta. Everything is referenced. We're talking about movies now. It's not even a faithful homage anymore. It's a tasteful. It's straight on. We're mentioning films, left and right. We're joking about like Endgame. Oh, you telling me there's like Back to the Future? Like that's our whole mission is based on that. And it's like, whoa. And you start thinking about Back to the Future, and I'm like, well, damn it. It's like, what's more affected is Endgame. You don't like Endgame because of because of that, or do you don't like Back to the Future now because that movie exists, and now they're, because we're loving the Avengers right at this moment. Now I don't, Back to the Future is kind of tainted now. Like it's hard. It's very hard.
I think someone would have to put a different spin on it. Right.
Yeah.
Or I think first of all, Andy, to your point, I think the dust needs to settle a little bit.
Yeah.
So having like an Evil Dead remake come out right on top of it. Yeah. It's kind of like, okay, like what's the point of that? So I think it's a combination of a couple things. Is the dust needs to settle on franchises or on that genre for a little bit. And then someone needs to come in and give it a swift kick in the ass.
Yeah.
Right. And, so and you can't do that with intention. I think you just need to find someone that loves the material and can kind of bring that back. I don't think you can formalize that, if that's a word. Say, hey, we need to bring this back. I think it's like people that have the love for the genre, kind of like with the brothers for Stranger Things, like they can kind of revitalize it, and it feels genuine because you could tell they love the era, even if that's getting a little long in the tooth, but. I think it's possible. The long short answer is I think it's possible, but it takes time.
The Stranger
Things does take time. You hit it on the head there, but unfortunately today everything is just so quick. There's so many things coming out at once, and it's hard. It's difficult to sift through because you're just being bombarded, and it weighs you down. And then you start thinking about some of the older films, and I like right now. We were talking right before. Dean was commenting on how lately I'm not very, I haven't really been kind with Marvel, the stuff that they're doing lately. I just have to say, it's just, I'm sure it's fatigue. I'm sure,
burnout.
It's burnout, but I enjoyed watching this movie last night, Evil Dead 2. I was like, we're going to be talking about, like, I gotta rent it. I didn't, I was like, I gotta rent it, so I put it on, but when I put it on, I enjoyed it because it took me back. And it's like, I miss that. I miss these like 90-minute, 2-hour films that just do what they do. And there's not a whole lot of like long form stuff, like everything's a character study today, and everything is, I'm not knocking it per se. Yeah. It's just still too much of it, I feel.
Have you guys
the balance to me is off, So,
have you guys seen the trailer for Clerks 3?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So
no.
I was looking forward to Clerks 3, and then I've heard just abysmal. things about it.
I like Kevin Smith. He's perfectly fine. He's had some clunkers and stuff like that. But the new Clerks
Tusk.
movie is about Randall having a heart attack and deciding he wants to make a film of him working in the Quick Stop. So the movie is his characters making Clerks, the first movie, and every joke is about like, I'm going to make a movie. Where are you going to do it? Well, I work at a Quick Stop. Let's do that. And then it's just like, there are no original ideas anymore. We are officially making movies of the movies of the movies. But your answer earlier about Stranger Things as recovering from that, I think is great because you watch Stranger Things. It's got its own story, but every once in a while you'll be like, okay, well, they're following this. That's obviously a Lost Boys reference. That shot's from this. Like, there's a shot in season 2 of Stranger Things, 2 or 3, where Hopper is like putting a cross in the ground or digging something or whatever, and it's the exact shot from Evil Dead 2 of him putting the cross in the ground and stuff. So they do the homage very well without beating you over the head, like actually having original characters and stuff. I think it's a good
There's actually a 30-minute. I showed it to the kids, like, cause Jacob's really into Stranger Things and stuff. So there's that on YouTube. If you look for it, there's a 30-minute video on YouTube with the Duffer Brothers just talking about all the films that they reference, and it's not even all of the movies.
Yeah,
it's just
I'm sure
like
there's a lot.
That's great.
a bunch, and of course it's all the great films that we love, so, but it's just and stuff that I never even thought of, like, oh, that's right, they're very clever. They do a good job at it,
Yeah.
But
and as if this movie didn't already move at a breakneck pace, there's also a montage we get. So as if things weren't going fast enough, we get one of the best scenes in the film is the montage of when he goes out to the woodshed for the second time, not the first time when they dub in woodshed and then he like runs out, getting the chainsaw ready. The whole scene of getting the cuffs, the clamps, drilling it, creating the strap. And at that point, then I kind of settled in, and it's just like all those things, the tightening, the twisting, the torquing, and then he looks, he looks down and says groovy, and at that point, I had arrived. I'm like, okay, I get what's going on here. Now I know, now I know this is kind of like at that point I was really smiling. I'm like, well, this is just a really cool movie because they took a character that was a weakling, a coward, had bouts of insanity. He cut his own hand off. You don't know what he's doing. Finally, like stepping into being like a hero.
Well, to Andy's point, like there's, you mentioned no character. Well, there it is. There's your character development, right?
Yeah,
he became this persona. Like he's, now he's going, he's going to kick some ass in Army of Darkness.
I disagree. He chopped his girlfriend's head off within the first 30 seconds of the movie. Then, like,
we're looking too far into it.
He's minorly inconvenienced by his hand, so he cuts it off. It's like, this guy is just. He's a psycho.
Yeah, he's a man of the times. He wants it now, and he wants it like quick and fast. And if she's giving him guff or she's acting a little possessed, the head comes off. Hand. He's like, give me back my hand.
Yeah.
I didn't say that he was a good character. I just said he was just. I'm just joking.
And Henrietta's like, I'll swallow your soul. He's like, swallow this.
Excuse me.
Total Rambo type. Like catchphrases that start coming out towards the end. Like once he kind of goes into that character, he kind of he starts like kind of doing that kind of stuff. Having like these kind of macho catchphrases and, twisting the sawed-off shotgun and holstering it. You kind of start to get some of the swagger. And really, I think that's really when the movie turns, because he becomes someone that was reacting to his circumstances and now is someone that's kind of trying to change the direction of the circumstances. Everything he was doing before was reaction, like Andy said, like, oh, she's possessed. I'm just gonna grab the shovel and swing it. You know what? I think that was a luck shot because it was just kind of like the way they showed that, Andy, is they show the shovel on the ground, they show him grab it, you see it swing, and then the head flies. Like I don't know, maybe he meant to hit her in the Like I have to think like he maybe intended to hit her, but that head just came right off.
Yeah,
Oh.
it happens.
It will happen if you don't aim it. If you don't aim it just right, and then the girlfriend do it like she decayed so fast. Like when she kind of comes out of the ground, she's all decrepit, but the head is all like perfect. And doing the spinning dance in the beginning, I'm like, this is just so creepy. I don't know what.
Yeah.
Is it funny? She's dancing and then she's like, ah, and she kind of disappears.
You know,
this film is kind of like, you like. I don't know. I think, Andy, I would go with you. I don't think I would tell somebody. I think I would say just watch this.
No, you can. That's exactly what I could.
And tell me what you think afterwards.
Well, that's the thing. I couldn't even describe it to anybody, right? I'd be like, I don't even know what I'm watching here. So yeah, you check this out, see what you think, have a go. You know,
there's something also that I've noticed as well when watching, because especially this time of year, every year, my wife and I watch about a horror movie a night for the month of October, and we usually watch the same ones over and over again because there's just ones from the 80s that I had on VHS or something like that. And I think that movies like this, like with the stop motion with the girl with her head and stuff like that, I mean, it was filmed on film and everything else, but like it found life on VHS, which very crappy quality. And not only you got your nostalgia brain on, so you're remembering it a little bit better than it was, but like the quality was so crappy that you didn't notice all the little imperfections and stuff like that. When all this stuff that is getting transferred into Blu-ray, into like the HD stuff for TV, it looks kind of silly, but it didn't look as silly. I don't remember it being that silly, but it could be that I was a kid. I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like it was slightly blurred, so you're not paying attention to the,
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Because you do remember like some of the stuff that doesn't translate well into when you see it so clear and pristine. It's like, I don't know about that. Yeah.
I don't know.
I
think I still watched it with the rose-colored glasses. I didn't take a critical eye to it because what's the point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Like this is not a movie to be critiqued like that. Like for its continuity or its paint. Like Andy said, there's none of that exists. So there's nothing to. There's none of that. Let's say there's none of that baggage to get in the way.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about what was this character's name. What did they do? Or did they do something earlier that I missed? It's like, no, because one by one, no one's going to be left anyway.
Right.
Yeah. We've been introducing our daughter to horror movies a little bit at a time. And I'm very careful about what I introduce from the 80s, not because of the gore or any of that stuff, but just because it's like I've said probably on this podcast before that I can't justify that anything that I liked from the 80s is objectively good. Like it's like handing my daughter like a Cinderella record from 1987. Like, this is good music. I can't say that. I can't say it's good music. I love it.
None of us can. Yeah,
but I can't expect her to think it's good. And this movie is like that. Like I would be afraid to sit her down and say like, this is you need to sit down. This is what 80s movies are like. Because she'd be like, "What's wrong with you people?"
No, I think she. Yeah, I think she would probably appreciate this when she's older, like a late teen, or because it's not about the horror. This becomes an exercise in filmmaking.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not. Yeah. It doesn't fit with. Although I can't. As far as iconography, Ash fits in with Freddy and Jay. Him with the chainsaw hand. He fits in with those horror icons.
Mm-hmm.
But the films don't, especially when you look at, like Eric said, the first one was kind of straight up horror. Number 2 was kind of horror comedy mix. Number 3 was a comedy horror mix, right? It leaned heavily into the, like, and like I said, from the beginning credits where it says, Bruce Campbell versus the Army of Darkness, kind of like an Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein.
Yeah.
I remember I saw it in the theater. I'm like, this is going to, I already think I understand what this film is going to be like.
To me, it was always more of an action movie.
Fun, scary, not like not threatening scary, just kind of fun and like comedy horror kind of stuff. Young Frankensteinish, perhaps, like not to that level, but meaning it's not threatening.
Yeah.
You more watch it to watch,
there was actually
you put the expectations away.
There was a pitch of Ash versus Jason versus Freddy movie. It went through so many different things that I remember reading that like they're in talks because I think they all had something to do with New Line Cinema at one point, or
Yeah.
so they were. How ridiculously stupid would that be? That kind of movie. It's hard enough to put Jason and Freddy in the same movie, but like having Ash in there, it's almost like he's like the Deadpool of.
Yeah, you know what? It would almost be like in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein when like Dracula's fighting the Wolfman and like Bud Abbott's like in the middle. Like Ash would be like in between the two of them, like kind of trying to get out of their way or trying to
cracking jokes, cracking
like,
wise.
The chain sort of cuts a tree down and it falls on Jason or something by accident. Like it would. I don't know if they would want to do that to those characters because you can't bring Ash into that and have him ramp up his seriousness. It would have to, those other characters would have to bring down their threat level. I don't think you could bring Ash up to their, like you can't put him into that movie and expect him to be a serious, like, a serious character or a serious part of it.
Right.
So it sounds good on paper. And I might've wanted to see it. Not sure it would have done, who knows, depending on who did it.
It would depend on good writing, because you can
the right sensibilities. It's a balance.
You could, sort of put those in their own little pockets too. You could have that comedic element, and that's that every scene that Ash is going to be in is going to be that.
Yeah.
So you could fit that in there somehow if it's done right. It's been done with Marvel and that kind of thing.
It feels like what's going to happen, when they throw Deadpool into an Avengers movie. I just don't want to see it. Like, don't take me out of it like that. I love Deadpool by himself. Mm-hmm. Like, keep him out of it. But did you guys see Ash versus Evil Dead, the TV show? Any of those?
I think I caught the first episode. Yeah, and I
kind of like the first 3 or 4. And it's just revisiting the whole.
Yeah, I mean, he's been the subject of video game. He's had a couple of video games, and I was kind of excited for the Ash versus Evil Dead, and then I'm like, I would have rather have seen an Evil Dead 4 in the 90s. I would have seen him, or maybe with the clout that Sam Raimi had after Spider-Man, or, I mean, in the 90s, he had a decent run. He had that film, The Gift, which was him being taken seriously as a serious director.
Yeah.
Simple Plan was another one that Raimi did, which, he was kind of going into some territory and getting some kind of clout as a serious director. Maybe going back to that would have been a step backward in his career of, hey, let's make an Army of Dark, another Ash film. That guy. And if it tanked, we may not have gotten Spider-Man. So, but I would have liked to have seen that. I would have liked to have seen an Ash in the 90s, another Evil Dead would have been good. It's
tough to see. And I think I've said this on this podcast again, also, like that to see the young and handsomes from our youth,
as old and fats.
Yeah. Like him in him in the, Doctor Strange, when he showed up, I'm like, oh man, he's well, we're all getting old. There's no question. It all happens to all of us, but like, it was just like, oh man, like, I don't want to see that guy as Ash anymore. Ash to me,
I think he's given up on it too. I think he's said his body can't take it. I mean, the stuff he's put himself through with those films is enough for one actor. So, as we wind it down, as we do, and this could be a long list, but let's talk about some of the favorite scenes or maybe Andy, if you got some of those nitpicks. I didn't really hear a lot of nitpicking from you. I was expecting to really tear it apart. So either favorite scene or something you want to rip into. Have at it. Your choice. Let's pull it. Let's start up the chainsaw if you want to rip.
I thought senseless story with no character development is not a rip.
We were all in agreement of that. That wasn't a ball. You weren't going on a limb for that one. You weren't on that ship.
I think that if there's anything, it's not directly. This movie is like the introduction to it, but I think that later on in his career, Sam Raimi leaned into this kind of stuff a little bit too much as his like. Well, I don't know if he's thinking that people are expecting it from him or what, but like, there's sometimes like in the movies like Drag Me to Hell where it's exhausting. It's like, this is set the camera down for God's sakes for 2 seconds. So but he's brilliant. I think he's great. Now this movie is just it to me just feels like the middle of a movie to me. It's like something happened beforehand. We're seeing a whole bunch of stuff, and then something like, I guess we know what happens with the medieval stuff afterwards, but it feels like we've just kind of turned it on in the middle of the afternoon on TV, and you're like, oh, what's going on? I don't care. I'll just keep watching. But yeah, it's just I love Bruce Campbell. He is very overacting in this movie. It's probably by design because it's only 2 or 3 years later that he was on Briscoe County Jr. He was just fine, and he
was
did
just fine.
Yeah, I mean,
He was under
he wasn't screaming into the camera constantly,
Yeah.
But he was also on Hercules and other shows like that as well. And I think
Burn Notice he's very good in too. Yeah.
So he's all right. I just kept thinking when I was watching it this time, like, man, who did they do this for? And I think the answer is themselves. I don't think that because if you read that script, it would be 3 pages of descriptions and then 1 line of dialogue, and then like, head gets squished, eyeball pops out, goes into a woman's mouth. It's all set descriptions. Like there's nothing
there's not a lot of dialogue in this film.
Yeah.
Especially in the first half, because it's mostly just Ash.
That's right. Absolutely.
The doctor, the blonde-headed guy, which a little bit of trivia, that blonde-headed Dr. Ed or whatever, he's been a host on QVC for the past 25 years.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He's not really an actor. He's like the main, like producing, and he's like the main host on QVC, Richard Domeyer.
His
blonde guy that was like a swallow your soul, and he got axed in the head. he's a host on QVC.
The evil version of him. That makeup was fantastic. It had like 3 rows of
the teeth sticking out. Oh,
it's really good.
It's just so it's just so like it's so creepy when they put those prosthetics on people's faces.
Yeah. Eric, what's the gouged out eyes too? The
sunken eyes,
really pronounced. Yeah,
which we saw shades of that in Multiverse of Madness with Zombie Strange.
Yeah,
was fully deadite. May as well have been a deadite makeup job. But what do you got for some favorites or
favorites? I can't. This isn't the kind of movie. To Andy's point, that there's no cherry picking. You watch it's the entire thing because it's nonstop. So I can't really pinpoint to like a favorite scene. It really just
you're either in or you're out. Yeah,
exactly. Because I don't even know. Like I said, I don't even know what the hell I'm watching here. I'm just kind of just in it, and you just and if you got this thing turned up loud, which I obviously didn't last night, but I remember watching this thing and it was like just the sound effects, the sound design in the movie, and it that gets under your skin as well. The constant. The voices and it's an attack on the senses, and you don't know where to stop. Sometimes you feel tempted to pause it because you need to take a breath. That's how frantic it is. But I enjoyed this from beginning to end, the entire thing. In fact, I think this holds up better to me than even Army of Darkness, I have to say.
Yeah, different films. Different films and going for something different. And
just for the style, just for the form.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I got three things. 2 of them are related. There's 2 falls that Bruce Campbell took, which really the one when in the beginning when he was getting possessed and he was getting pushed through all the trees, it was like that weird camera effect, and then he hit the tree and fell into the puddle. That fall was obviously he didn't fall from that height, but it was so well executed. It looked like he fell from that height.
Do you know how they did the flying thing?
They put him on something, right? It looks like his arms were attached to something.
He's in front of a screen like they did Superman. Like it's just a screen of trees behind him playing a movie, and then there's hitting him with branches off camera.
I believe it, but it's effective.
Again,
the camera, and all you need to do is shake that camera a little bit. And it looks like he's, really moving. So,
and then the other fall is when he's in the basement and he's walking upstairs, and Henrietta grabs his ankles from the stairs and pulls his ankles out from under him, and he falls like face first down the stairs. It's like, oh my God, what like the fall, that's like a fear. Of like someone grabbing your ankles from like those exposed stairs, like pulling your feet out, and you fall forward down the stairs. Oh my God. Yeah. And then the thing that caught me on this watching was the very end. Take away Army of Darkness, right? Like pretend that Army of Darkness didn't exist yet. That ending is very Planet of the Apes-ish.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
He lands and he's like, no, what happened? Like all the knights and Ted Raimi is that night. Hey, hail to the guy that.
Yeah.
But it's that moment of like stranger in a strange land, and he's like, no, like it doesn't even set the tone for what Army of Darkness totally swung. What opens with, my name is Ash and I am a slave. Like it totally has a different tone, but the ending of Evil Dead ends on a downer.
Yeah.
It
kind of does.
And he's you wouldn't time, and he's like, no, it's like, what happened? Like, how did this happen? And
you could argue that Army of Darkness, if it hadn't gotten made, it would have probably had that effect, because don't forget, it's in the story, it's in the book. Like even in the first movie, one of the girls gets sucked into the vortex and she's thrown back in time. So she, so that already is a thing. It's like it's part of the legend or whatever, or the curse or whatever. So the fact that he's there, that's the horrific moment. It's like, oh my God,
it was destined to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it was already foretold. Kind of that whole circular time travel thing that we just talked about with the MCU. And now we've got Army of Darkness. We've got Evil Dead in there too. So
I have one more thing.
I think that's going to do it. Do you have any closing thoughts, Andy?
I do. I have one more thing.
Go for it.
It is. I just thought about it when you were just talking about it a minute ago, Eric. Is you kind of touched on it but didn't say it. It does seem like Army of Darkness is more dated than Evil Dead 2, doesn't it? When you think about it,
I think so. Yeah,
because like Army of Darkness feels like a straight up '90s movie that it could be played on USA in the afternoon on Sunday.
Absolutely. I started to watch it like a couple months ago, and I have to say that I just lost. It didn't hold my interest. Like I ended up I got distracted, and but I wasn't like glued. And by the middle of it, I was just because of the campy, of course it was very slapstick and that kind of thing too. That kind of, that kind of thing. Sometimes it doesn't hold up. You think of like Mel Brooks and some of his movies. It's just like, this is kind of dated.
So maybe it was good that he didn't get the budget he wanted for, or get the big budget for Evil Dead 2, because he needed them to be sharper and more economical and think outside the box for things. And then when you've got
creative,
the money,
definitely more imaginative, more creative,
you can do what you want. Good point. Good point. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the 3324 podcast. Andrew, thank you as always. And never worry about, am I going to be asked back? Don't worry about that.
Yay.
You may want to say, you may say, why do they keep asking me back? That might be the question you ask at some point. It's like, why? But no, always great to have you here. And again, especially during the Halloween holiday season, because we know that you love that so much. And I love talking to you about that stuff, because your passion really comes through, and it really,
it's my favorite.
To comment on what you said in the beginning, Dean, is, we have,
what did I say?
These people, we'd like to have the same faces on, because we're very grateful that you guys are all talented. You bring something to it. You got, Andy's the artist. It does certainly makes us,
makes us look good.
These guys,
you guys have been friends for a while, and I've been friends with you guys separately, but you have other friends on, and I feel like I know them now by listening to them on the podcast.
I've been thinking about that, Andy. We're going to get everybody on one.
We have to,
because right now we've got two separate things. So I want to get you in with the other ones too. We have to like mash everything together.
Nice.
That's right.
And I just need to find the right thing, but I want everybody in a room together and just roasting me and just letting me have it. Maybe
he likes to get it.
Maybe that'll be our 100th episode. Maybe for our 100th episode, we're approaching that. Maybe we can put together
Can we do it? Can we have everybody on that we
we could try? You can do the whole episode on controversial takes, so everybody can just fight. I like Last Jedi.
You know what? I'll throw the red meat into the middle of the room, and you guys just fight over it. Like I'll be like Joker. Like if we're having auditions. Only one position available, and I'm going to break the cue stick and throw it in the room.
Make it quick.
Andy, Last Jedi, bomb or no?
Don't get me started.
What are your thoughts? And then just kind of
boy.
And then I'll turn off my microphone, let everybody do it, and then I'll throw the next hand grenade in. But thank you so much, Andy. It's always great, and it's
always a pleasure.
Great talking about this film. Again, Andrew Cremeans art on Instagram. Please, I beg you. Go follow him. His stuff is great. We're gonna put a link in the show notes too. So all you got to do is like after this episode, just go to the show notes. You hit the link. It's going to take you right to his Instagram. You don't have to type anything in. We're going to do the heavy lifting for you. That's how much we really want you to go check out his art and give him a follow. He does a lot of great stuff.
Thanks,
and he's
man.
got some secret stuff on the horizon that he mentioned that he can't talk about. But as always, thank you. And Eric, of course, these guys make us look good, right? That's what it's about.
They do.
Yeah.
I always
You
get
look
something
marvelous. I
You
noticed
look marvelous.
you have your ELO thing behind you and you haven't done the bell. I mean, it's like you have to do it by automatically
by
now.
proxy.
No one's mentioned.
Who? Yeah.
No one's mentioned.
ELO? What?
Jeff Lynne? Oh, there we go.
Jeff Lynne. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we have to say Jeff Lynne. We can't say ELO.
Yeah, ELO
It's
doesn't count.
Jeff Lynne's ELO now. Okay.
It's the Jeff Lynne bell. So
see
when
how
Jeff
it is.
mentioned again, the bell goes off.
Wow.
If did that every time. We'll be doing it every episode because this blanket is here. But you have to mention. He has to come up in a reference.
Okay.
Gotcha.
We'll
Gets
have
the
to
bell.
apologize to Bev Bevan and Richard Tandy
Yeah,
and all the other guys that
they'll-
made
they-
Jeff
they'll
look
have-
good.
They don't have their own bell. They didn't write every ELO song and produce every ELO song, so they don't get a bell. He gets his own
Okay.
bell. So that's going to do it. Thank you guys so much for joining us each week. Again, check us out on socials also, 3324 Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. We'll leave it there. You're going to hear it in about 3 seconds anyway. A voiceover artist that does it better than me. She's gonna take you out of there. So until next time, for Eric, this has been Dean asking you to please, definitely for Evil Dead 2, be kind and rewind.